Hi everyone, I'm Alejandra La Fenix Ayala. How's everyone doing today? Thank you for joining me in another show on Phoenix Boxing TV. Today we're going to be talking about what is going to be the new boxing norm. Now, as we all know, and actually a lot of states have said it, there is no going back to normal. There is no going back to, what it was a few months ago, for good or for bad. So just like in the rest of the world and the rest of everything else that's going on, boxing is in it too, and also suffering the same consequences as the rest of the world, as the rest of the industries. And of course, we cannot go back, for good or for bad, to what boxing once was. So what are some of the new requisites that are going to be put into place before we're able to move forward? So this is really interesting because on the one hand, you have all the federal and state legislation from any country, and then on the other hand, you have the organisms, the boxing organisms, the WBC, the WBA, the FIB, all the major ones, the organization who are also going to be implementing their new rules. So it's really interesting. So as we know, Nicaragua had their event almost a month ago now, I believe. And saludos, Pedro. And, from what we heard, nothing went wrong. Nothing went crazy. And if looking back at some pictures, if you actually put, boxing in Nicaragua, it was really interesting because even though the arena was really big, you could tell that each seat, even, the front row seats, the ringside, they were a good, yard apart. And of course, on the bleacher side, there were, you couldn't say, there had to be 2 seats in between each person. So that's really interesting because do you enjoy it the same way if you can't, grab your buddy's hand and say, yell, or, if you can't be pushing each other, if you can't, be screaming together. I don't know. But for now, as it looks, if that's good, that's what it's going to have to be. Actually, most countries have said that they will have the boxing, not just boxing, all sporting events are going to be coming back soon, but without public. And it's really interesting. Well, Japan, and Inoue said that he's excited to be coming back, and Japan has said that they will allow public, but only 30%. So honestly, you have to think about the promoters. If they're going to have an event with public, they're going to have to get a big space so that it's worth, the entrance, because if you find a smaller venue, 1,000, people venue, you're going to only have 300 people coming in. And that's including everybody, staff and everything. Saludos, Alberto. Diego's here. Roberto Cartagena, thank you. So I don't know, what do you guys think? 30%, as a promoter, you have to think large scale. And of course, what about these venues? Are they going to give you a discount because they know that it's, troubled times? Are they not going to care? I don't know. For example, in Tijuana, they have the arenas for, local boxing events of a capacity of 400 people. So we're talking about 30% of 400 people. That's how much I think one major main event fight can bring in. So is it going to be on a first come first serve basis? And then does that defeat the purpose of social distancing because they're going to be crowding the space prior to the event so that they could all get in? It's really complicated. Robert Cartagena says, I definitely see the ring mats and tumble buckle corners being sanitized in between fights. Judges and all media will probably have to wear facial coverings until further notice. See, I haven't thought about that. I hadn't even thought about, the ring mats and the turnbuckle corners having to be sanitized. But yeah, that's a very good point. As we know, not only are you sitting down in the sweat and, you have the corner literally breathing down your neck, but, you do have those common spaces where you put the Vaseline. I think some places, they don't allow you to put Vaseline in the corner anymore, but you do have a lot of interaction there. So that's really interesting. And going back to Japan, as we were saying, so they said some of the prerequisites are going to be, as Roberto just mentioned, everybody, without exception, is going to be wearing a face mask including boxers, until it's their turn to go up. And even the referees are going to need it. Now they do say this is going to be for now until they see if the referee can continue with his duty with the face mask. You know, obviously to see if the boxers react or if they could hear him properly, etc. You know, but until now everybody has to wear it. As I said, only 30% capacity, and the rest of the world, or a lot of the majority of the other countries where they are not going to have public, it hasn't been clear, including Japan, it hasn't been clear if it's going to be a prerequisite that they all need to actually get the coronavirus, the COVID-19 test done prior to. That hasn't been said. Saludos, Marina. But what we do know is that the majority of the promoters, I think for the sake, not only the safety, but I think just so everybody's at peace, they are going to be doing it. And as we spoke on Friday, it's really interesting. Top Rank has said they're ready. They want to do the June 6th fight, and then 2 weeks after, they're going to have another one. This is going to be into the foreseeable future and without an audience. Las Vegas is about to reopen the MGM Grand, where Top Rank is scheduled to have their fights. They're going to have it there. Top Rank is saying they're going to have a main fight, an undercard, and 3 supporting fights. But it is going to be on pay-per-view, and the event will take place in 3 hours. So they're going to drag out 5 fights in 3 hours. I don't know. I think we're all just so starved for boxing that we're going to be watching everything, all the moves, all the interviews, all the action going on there, even though there isn't going to be an audience. So I'm pretty sure they're going to be filling up that space somehow. Well, they have to get their money's worth, you know, as much as the public as the promoters. And Top Rank said something really interesting. So Bob Arum said that, you know, as we know, when the UFC, the first event that they had back, the day of the weigh-in, they had the testing for the COVID-19, and one of the guys did come out positive, so he didn't fight. But that got us thinking, okay, we're literally waiting the day before the fight to find out if he can fight or not. And in the meantime, who is he interacting with? What about the hotels? What about his group? What about everybody else present? They're susceptible to being, you know, in a contagious atmosphere. So what Bob Arum is saying is that there's going to be 2 tests done. The fighters are going to arrive a week prior to the event, and they will get tested, and then they're going to get tested again. And not only the fighters, but the corners, the referees, the judges, everybody who's going to be present at the event is going to get tested. So they've said that they have the capacity to test 70 people in 1 day and have all the results within a couple of hours. They're ready, they have the tests ready, and they have the personnel ready to be doing those tests. So good for them. Another precaution that they're going to take is they're going to have everyone in the MGM, and for example, level 20 is going to be everybody in the all the fighters and everybody at the event, and nobody else can go in or out. So in that way, they're going to make sure that that's properly sanitized, and you know, all of that. Also, they're only going to allow them to eat at a restaurant that's going to be obviously under their careful watch. And also, they're going to allow them to only train at the Top Rank facilities, where also it will be limited only to them, not to the public, and will have all the precautions necessary. So that's really interesting that this promoter, that Bob Arum, is doing all of this, really going above and beyond what is being asked not only by the country, you know, U.S., but also by the state of Las Vegas. They're going beyond all those precautionary measures. And I think also just to, not only to impulse, but to have, I think, even boxers, or I think people who maybe are incredulous, or if they know of people, or if their own family has been infected, it's like a psychological thing, you know? So I think having all these preemptive measures is a good thing. On the other hand, as we mentioned, the WBC has said that they're going to be doing a lot of measures too. So this is really interesting. For one, they're going to lower the costs of the sanctioning, of the belt. So the President Suleiman said that this is going to be on a case-by-case basis. So it's not going to be like if the sanctioning was $3,000, now it's $2,000 for everybody. No, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, looking at, the most needy, I'm guessing, and the most people in need, those maybe who don't have such a strong promoter, etc. I'm not sure what. They just said it was a case-by-case basis. Another thing is that they're not going to be so restrictive on weight. They haven't said how much tolerance they're going to be given, but even at World Championship level, where usually if you don't make weight, then you don't fight for the belt, they're saying that they're going to be making exceptions, a tolerance with the weight, because as Suleiman says, the majority doesn't have their own gym to train in, or if they do have, a body bag or whatever, they don't have for example, the at-home trainer. A lot of these guys, even though they are world champions, they don't have the facility or, to have their manager, the trainer, their physical conditioning, everybody there at his house available. So he's saying that there's going to be a tolerance in the weight. Another really interesting thing, and this is, I think, the most incredible for me, and I don't know how I feel about it, is that he's thinking of introducing virtual judges. So the first which literally he means, a judge will be at home watching the fight and giving his card through that method. Now, I don't know if each judge is going to have their own card or if the judges are going to be watching the fight and then they just have to hand it in. I don't know how they're going to be submitting their cards. I don't know how it could be prevented that, unfortunately, there are times when there's, strange things happening in there, to say the least. And so Suleiman said this is so that we can eliminate some of the costs for the promoters, that obviously they're not going to have people coming in. So we want to alleviate these costs of having to bring in international judges. And secondly, we don't know if international judges can fly. Here in Mexico, you can't even have national flights yet. I think that might change as of June or July. I don't know. They've been moving it back. So even if they are national judges, if they're not from that state, how are they going to be able to fly? You can't. They would have to take a bus. That's another cost, etc. So looking into it, he said, we don't have any programmed WBC fights yet that they've given me to give clearance, but when we do, we're going to be looking at the possibility of cyber judges. So I don't know, what do you guys think about that? That's pretty wild for me. I know that we're in this technological era, but I mean, that's weird to me. I mean, on the one hand, as a fighter, I understand not fighting with the public, even though you're not going to be hearing the cheers, the screams, or the boos, or whatever. Different atmosphere, I understand that. But without judges as well, that's really weird to me. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, this is unprecedented. I think everyone's just trying to cope with this new reality that we do have. And speaking about these restrictions, it's really interesting that most countries and states are opening back up the possibility of large-scale sports, even if it is without an audience, and yet the gyms are going to be the last thing to open. If we talk about the 4 phases of reopening, they're in the 4th. So here, for example, in Mexico, even though as of June 15th you can do boxing without an audience, the gyms aren't open until August. So that's crazy. I mean, I don't know, that's crazy to me. Some gyms are opening up 30% capacity. They have all these restrictions, or they're going to get suspended. They're going to get sanctioning. They're going to get, they're going to have to pay a fee. And all of this because if they don't follow these restrictions. And for boxing in specific, you have to be cleaning all the equipment. You can't have equipment of common use, such as dumbbells or jump ropes. You have to bring your own gloves, things like that. And they're saying that you have to wear a mask, but if you walk all day with the mask or work all day with the mask, you know how uncomfortable it can be. Now imagine, sweating into the mask, breathing hard into the mask. I don't even know. I guess no sparring, because how are you going to spar with the mask? So all of these restrictions are really interesting to me. I think it's a game of testing, let's see what works, let's see what doesn't. Different countries are trying different things. And then it's also really interesting because, for example, as a boxer, you have no say in what's going on, right? So you depend on the restrictions of the country, of the state, sometimes of the municipality, of the promoter, of the place it's taking place in, of the venue. They all have their preventive measures that are going to have to take place, and you as a boxer are just going to have to pay attention and listen, and you really don't know what you're in for, literally. So, this is our new reality. It's really interesting. I don't know what's going to happen yet. As I said, many promoters, Eddie Hearn, for example, has expressed that he's going to start his events, and that in comparison to other promoters, he doesn't want to do it inside. He wants to do it outside, in the UK, in the premises of Matchroom Boxing. And, he's saying that, he's going to have drones for cameras, that they're going to have fireworks, more of a spectacle for the viewers at home, since they can't actually be there to feel the adrenaline of just the boxers. Sometimes even if you just put a bunch of people in a gym and it's professional boxing, everybody gets riled up. But if you don't have that, how are you going to get the people riled up, and make it interesting? So that's another factor that they're saying. The good thing is that right now we're in good time. It's summertime basically everywhere in the Western Hemisphere, and in the Northern Hemisphere, I'm sorry. And so we have that ability. But if we do not find a cure, I guess, for the COVID-19 soon, they're talking about a second wave coming in October. So, if we can't, I don't know. I don't really know what's going to happen, especially when it gets colder, especially where, for example, the US and the UK, it snows a lot. Like, what's going to happen in those instances? For example, Eddie Hearn, that's saying that he wants to do it outside. Obviously, by those times, he can't do it outside. I hope for the best. I think, we're going to pull through this. I think it's just going to be a matter of testing things out and seeing, what works, what doesn't. For example, Bob Arum saying, in the UFC, this part didn't work out, so I'm going to do this. And I'm pretty sure that once the big promoters start, obviously they have the money and the resources to be doing all of these trial and errors, then the smaller time promoters can invest a little bit more. And it's unfortunate because the people and the boxers who are going to suffer the most during this time are, the 4-rounders, the 6-rounders, the 8-rounders, even the 10-rounders that don't have a promoter. No small-time promoter is going to be doing boxing, soon. Although we do have King Carlos Promotions in Michoacan here in Mexico, who is going to do a closed-door event soon. So we'll see, we'll take action. We'll be paying attention to see what happens at that event. I'm very excited. I really do hope that everything goes super smooth and that there are no major setbacks. And in that way, we can reactivate boxing again. But as of now, this is definitely the new norm. Just trying to see what's going to happen. And it's awesome that everybody's coming together to be able to to see what's going to happen, and that nobody has given up. Nobody has said, okay, well, it's just a thing in the past, we're not going to do it, we're just going to wait. No, everybody's eager to come back, so more power to you, because there's a lot of good fights pending, and I hope that, late June and July, we start seeing a lot of these good fights taking place. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining me. I am Alejandra La Phoenix Ayala. As always, a big shout out to Chicago, Tijuana, Mexico City, Canada, and the rest of the world. Thank you, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.